My name is Empress Nyiringango. I'm a Rwandan Canadian singer-songwriter based in Ottawa. I have two beautiful daughters, Gaju and Juru. I also released one album, Resilience, back in 2016. I thank Ontario Art Council for supporting me. And I released also an EP of 3 songs back in 2018. I'm currently planning to release my second album in the near future. The name of the album we're working on is Obuntu. Initially, we were supposed to do the entire project remotely, but experienced communication and technical difficulties. So my music director, Aron, and I decided to travel to Rwanda to do the initial recording session in Rwanda because we needed traditional musicians who play Inanga. This is a very special instrument in Rwanda. So that was the only way we could make this recording project more effective and so that we could have really good sound and good collaboration with everybody else who was supposed to play on the project. Between April and May 2021, we started recording, and so it's been 1 year, almost 1 year, approximately 1 year since we started recording this second album project. And we really happy that we have been able to collaborate with some of the best musicians from South Africa, Rwanda, Canada, and some of them also recorded remotely. So this is a partially remotely recording project and also in studio, live in studio live sessions. The concept of my second album aims at exploring and creating a unique sound that I named JABLUR, so that we could use an old instrument that you see next to me, Inanga. It's a very old instrument, so we wanted to blend that instrument, this instrument, with other modern instruments. So that concept was perhaps really hard because some of it because we had to find the right place to do it. So the right place to do it was to go to my home country, Rwanda, and collaborate with traditional musicians who play this instrument really well. So I was really happy to meet the son of Sophia Nzayisenga. Actually, Sophia Nzayisenga played on my previous project, the EP, the songs like Amahori Rwanda and Jazz in Love. You can find them on YouTube. And so Sophia Nzayisenga introduced me to her son, Akayezu. So when we were doing this recording, we were really happy to work with him because he really understands the concept of the project. Of course, the music director was the reason why this whole project was smoothly going or happening, because he understands. He also had the opportunity to work with amazing musicians in Rwanda a long time ago when he was living there in early 80s.
Iyi projet ya Nyiringango yitwa JABLUR, ni ibijyanye no kuvanga injyana ya jazz na blues ariko kandi ishamikiye no kuri gakondo. Tuvuga tukakora fusion y'izo njyana zombi gakondo ikaganza kugira ngo nayo ibashe gutera imbere, ibashe guhura n'ubundi bwoko bw'imiziki kugira ngo ibashe kumenyekana no kwamamara mu mpande enye z'isi.
Nitwa Sophie Nzayisenga, abantu umucuranzi w'inanga ya Kinyarwanda. Nkaba naratangiye gucuranga inanga kuva ku myaka 6, numva zigenda byigiye kuko nasanze mu muryango wacu ari abataramye, papa acuranga, mu muryango wabo mama naho bacuranga, sogokuru byara mama naho ari umucuranzi, mama ari abacuranzi. Aho rero niho nakuye inganzo muri makeya. No mugisha rero kuba nicaranye n'umuhungu wanjye nawe rero umucuranzi w'inanga, nawe yabikwiriyemo niko nabivuga, akagenda rero uko tubikora, aza kubikunda ndetse mfata igihe cyo kumwigisha. Uyu munsi akaba ari umucuranzi w'inanga mwiza cyane.
Kera inanga narayangaga kabisa, ariko njyewe n'umutimanama wanjye njye wafashe icyemezo cyo kwiga inanga, mbikuye ku bahungu mama yigishije, kubera ko njyewe numvaga inanga nyine icurangwa n'abagore gusa, kubera ko nabonaga mama ari uyicuranga wenyine. Hanyuma abahungu yagiye yigisha, mbona barimo barabikora neza, numva ndabikunze bya hatari, nanjye mfite icyemezo cyo kwiga rero. Hanyuma uko nagiye nyiga gake gake, niko nagiye ndushaho kuyikunda, niko nagiye ndushaho no kumenya ibintu byinshi bijyanye nayo. Ariko hagati aho mbere na mbere umuziki narawukundaga muri rusange, ariko ingingo nyamukuru yatumye njya no kwiga umuziki byari kugira ngo nyine nanjye develop inanga, njye nyicuranga nk'uko ibyifuzo byanjye bingana, nyine inyura umutima, kandi mbe nanayicuranga no mu yindi miziki y'abastari batandukanye. Numvaga nyine byantera ishema kuba nicaye n'umustar ukomeye cyane kuri stage ndi kumucurangira inanga ari kuririmba. Ni byiza gucuranga uririmba ku nanga, ariko no gucurangira undi muntu nabyo birakunda. Nicyo kintu cyo namaze kubona kandi namaze no guteza imbere. Already natangiye gucuranga injyana z'amafrobeat, amazouk, ibintu bitari bimenyerewe, amajazz ndayacuranga, reggae, kandi mama mafite ya reggae yakoze n'inanga gusa. Iyo ni fusion nziza cyane.
Twahisemo gukora iyi ndirimbo mu njyana gakondo kubera ko injyana gakondo niyo njyana y'iwacu, niyo njyana twiyumvamo, niwo mwihariko wacu, niyo identity yacu. Twifuza rero ko kwerekana umuco wacu binyuze mu bihangano, ariyo mpamvu twifuje gukora iriya ndirimbo kugira ngo ibe yagera ahantu hatandukanye, abantu babone uburyo dushobora guhuza injyana kandi ikabyara ikintu cyiza. Twerekanye umuziki wacu ariko kandi tukavanga n'izindi njyana, bigatanga iyindi njyana nshya y'umwimerere itari isanzwe. Rero ni akantu gashyashya, ni uburyo ni ugucreya, ni creativity, ibijyanye n'ubuhanzi. Mu buhanzi rero ni ukwicara ukareba ikintu gishobora kuba kitaragaragara, ukaba wakirema bundi bushya, ukagiha isura nziza kandi ukakimurikira abantu bakamenya ko niko gaciro k'ubuhanzi, ni ukubona ibyo abantu batabona, hanyuma ukaba wabivumbura ukabikora neza ukabibagaragariza.
Ni instrument y'umuziki, ntabwo ari aka instrument, ni instrument, ni iragutse ku buryo njyewe nubwo wayimpa muri ya scale yayituningiyemo mbere itari iyi ngiyi natuningiyemo, njyewe nacuranga ibintu byinshi. Hari ibintu nize mwarimu yanyigishije mu ishuri ry'umuziki byo kuvanga amanota. Nimba uhereye kuri iyi noneho mu kanya ntuhere kuri ibyo, ahubwo uhere kuri indi ugenda ubivanga, umeze nk'uri gucanga amakarita. Rero inanga ni ngari cyane kandi ifite ijwi ryiza, nyine umuntu yumvise bwa mbere ahita yumva ari ikintu kidasanzwe yumvise mu matwi ye kabisa. Rero nkaba ndushaho no gukundisha abantu inanga kabisa. Ni instrument iri melodique, iri romantic.
A second reason is because I always wanted to find out if there was a viability to blend the sound of Inanga and other modern instruments. So my curiosity led me to do this project. Today, I'm so happy and grateful that I was able to meet and work with Aron. He's actually a Juno Award-winning producer in Canada and of course in Africa. So when I told him about this project, he was really happy because he also was on board with my idea. So we started recording and we involved amazing musicians. So from South Africa, Canadian musicians, and of course Rwandan artists. So now the general misconception that Inanga belongs to its little rigid world has started to change, because we can hear some songs that has that sound of Inanga. For instance, in my previous or latest releases on social platforms or major platforms, I received a positive reaction or feedback on those songs. People saying it sounds really different and beautiful because we were able to to bring that sound on a different level. Like you can hear like Inanga, piano, or violin, or amayugi. Amayugi is a traditional, is another percussion of Rwanda, but we wear that around the foot. It's beautiful, it sounds beautiful. So when you hear the song Amahoro Rwanda, you can hear all those elements, and it's really vivid and vibrant. So really, Inanga for me, I would like to hold it in my hand because I have so many good things to say about this instrument. Yeah, the person who plays or makes this instrument could have more good things to say about the instrument. But for my personal views, I think this is an amazing instrument. It can be blended with any other instrument. So it's a versatile acoustic instrument.
Nemeye gukorana na Nyiringango kuri iyi projet ya JABLUR kuko ni umuhanzi gakondo ariko uzi neza ibyo akora, akunda injyana ye ya gakondo, akunda no kuyimakaza. Ahanini usanga mu byo aririmba mu muziki we niyo ashyira imbere cyane cyane n'ubutumwa buyiherekeje. Rero nabonye gukorana nawe duhuje intumbero, hari byinshi cyane duhuje. Ntabwo byangoye gukorana nawe nahise mbyiyumvamo cyane, mbona n'umuntu dushobora guhura tukakora injyana kandi ikaba nziza bitewe nuko inzozi zacu akenshi usanga zijya guhura, kuzamura umuziki gakondo ukumvikana ukamenyekana, ntugume hano mu Rwanda ukaba wagira ahantu ku isi yose. Rero iyo ndirimbo nkumbuye gakondo irivuga cyane ibihe byiza byabagaho kera, ukuntu umuco kera bawusigasiraga, ariko bikaba bisa naho itagihabwa umwanya munini kubera iterambere, ubukoroni se byagiye biza bigatuma umuco nyarwanda ugenda usa n'uhabwa agaciro gake. Nkumbuye gakondo rero ni nko kongera kuvuga ngo icyampa gakondo yacu ikongera ikagaruka. Isano rirahari cyane hagati y'injyana ya jazz, blues na gakondo, kubera ko isano ya mbere nuko zikomoka muri Afrika. Ikindi uyu muziki aho uvukagera ufite ahantu uhuriye, niyo mpamvu mfata inanga nkaba nayihuza na jazz, nkaba nayihuza na blues, nkaba nayihuza na afro, nkaba nayihuza n'izindi njyana zitandukanye. Umuziki rero ufite ukuntu ufite ahantu hamwe ushamikiye ari naho uhurira, ari nayo mpamvu dukunda kuvuga ko umuziki ari rwo rurimi isi yose ihuriyeho kandi yumva. No kugerageza kwigira ku birenge by'abatubanjirije. Hari ukuntu umuziki uri moderne uza ukatuganza ukatwibagiza iby'iwacu, ariko mu muziki wawukora uburyo bwose ubikoramo ugiye uvangamo n'injyana gakondo, nibyo bigira umusaruro, nibyo bigera kure, ku buryo umuntu wumva injyana yawe yumva ko iyo byose hari ahantu hari isoko uvomaho. Birafasha cyane kuruta gukopiya ugapestinga injyana yo kwa runaka, n'ubundi burimo kwiteza imbere ntabwo ariyo wavukiyemo. Rero byasaba imbaraga nyinshi cyane kugira ngo ubashe kwinoza neza nk'uko wagakwiye gufata injyana y'iwanyu ukayinoza ukayizamura. Ni byiza abahanzi bagenzi banjye bakora ibintu bitandukanye, gushingira cyane ku muco gakondo, nibwo umuziki wacu uzagera kure.
My name is David Draves. I run Little Bullhorn Studio here in Ottawa. I've been running it since 1994. I'm responsible for producing, playing, recording. I'm also the janitor here sometimes, not very often as well. And I've known Nina, I think roughly about 3 years now. So we've worked a bit before on another project. I've also known Aron for 2 years, maybe a little longer. And I've really enjoyed being a part of the music that they make and the projects that they bring in. I did study at the University of Ottawa. I studied ethnomusicology, and it wasn't a prerequisite to working on this music, but I do find it did remind me of a lot of the study that I did on, for instance, I studied a lot of instruments from continental Africa and also the French Caribbean as well. So in that sense it was nice, even though we didn't really get to recording any African instruments here. It's nice to have dealt with them sonically a bit. And also I think it prepared me for what the music would sound like as well in general. And in that sense, it's been really nice working with Nina and Aron, and nice to let them sort of develop their sound through the studio as much as we did. I would have liked to have even done more in the end. It's just, I think COVID played some parts in that as far as where things got done. When Nina first came back from Rwanda with the tracks that they had done in Rwanda, I was blown away, frankly. This stuff is just beautiful. I know Aron had a big part in that as well. I've been really introduced to the sound of the Inanga as well, which to me it's a bit, as I think Raphael was stating earlier, it's a very, it's unique, but it's also mostly just a beautiful musical instrument. And the tone of it is really quite beautiful. And the playing on this, particularly Ubuntu, is really, really beautiful, I find. So in those senses, it's been, you know, a bit extraordinary, the whole process. And yeah, in general, it's been, I mean, just one of those things where when you're working in a studio, you hope to be able to work obviously with good people no matter what, but also maybe have something that you, at the end of the day, you sort of think, wow, that's something you wouldn't get in another opportunity. And in that sense, I'm really lucky to be a part of it, and also to be able to work in the field of music in general. So.
My experience working on my second album project, Ubuntu, it's amazing for many reasons. First of all, I'm growing as a singer-songwriter and as a musician, as a person. Because when you collaborate with other people, there's something you always take away. If you're open-minded, you always take something good. Working with Aron, with Dev as a sound engineer, or Raphael, cello player, or other musicians in Rwanda like Akayezu, and many others have really helped me grow. And I'm hoping that this growth will continue so that we can make more beautiful music in the near future. So I would say it's absolutely beautiful working on this project.
Right now, I felt when you brought in Ubuntu that it feels, I know you showed me a whole bunch of visual about the making of it. And I think it sort of played into my idea of what the sound was as well. And to me, it seems to be a very geographic album. And I would, in my opinion, describe it more in that way, as opposed to jazz or ethnically Rwandan. To me, you know, I hear elements of those things, and I hear, obviously, the acoustic instruments play a big part in the sound. But I find it has this feeling of players and players in places, and I think that's really quite extraordinary. And if I had to qualify it, it's a very visual and sort of, I guess you could use the word cultural in the sense of the way it was performed, written as well in my conversations with Nina as well. That it's been a very sort of collaborative and geographic album, including being here in the wintertime finishing it, which is, I don't know how that plays into it other than that it's part of the, you know, part of what it gathers along the way. Any good recordings, they tend to have stories behind them, and it's been really nice, you know, talking of skating and listening to music from Rwanda it's an interesting treat for sure.
My name is Raphael Weinroth Brown. I'm a cellist and composer. I had the pleasure of playing on 3 tracks for the new album from Empress Nyiringango, and the tracks were Africa, Beza, and Mwana. And it was really quite an easy process working on them. I received the mixes, and they already had some demo strings on them, and I basically just performed those and largely stuck to what was there, and then added a bit of my own improvisation, tweaked some of the arrangements, and added some extra layers. It was really just a question of adding an element that wasn't already in the music, and there are already so many great things in place, such a nice arrangement with kind of a diverse range of instruments. You know, kind of a more of a jazz style in some cases and more traditional elements in others. And so I was trying to sort of bridge that gap with something that felt arranged at some points but also spontaneous at others.
I'm a bit surprised by the strings on it, for sure, and I think that's probably the biggest charm part is the whatever we would call those strings, other than strings, because they seem like it seems like string. And in that sense, the resonant chamber is somewhat unique, like the size of it, and I guess you know. At this point, we're playing it without any fretting or anything, so it's necessarily an open tuning, or whatever you would call it, a particular tuning, and then you're just playing inside of that, which to me is more, you know, continental Africa in the sense of Mbira or stuff like that, where you've been given a scale to work with, and you play out of that scale. I think it's. I'm a big fan of resonating instruments. And this obviously, you know, there's a lot of sympathetic tone out of it when you're combining strings.
I would say that the tracks have a really interesting balance of emotion and storytelling and songwriting with kind of a more orchestrated arrangement. So it feels intimate at one point, but also kind of more expansive with a lot of instruments, a lot of dialogue, and I think that it's a really nice blend of the vocal lines and also the instrumental interplay, and different instruments taking the lead at different times. And I tried to play into that a bit more in some cases by trying to kind of call and answer with some of the instruments that were already recorded.
These instruments could exist, you know, as you're saying, in the history of Rwanda and be very important politically or whatever, but to have it actually work its way onto your songs and be that beautifully played is obviously the part you would want to like tell other people about. That it's a beautiful sounding instrument on its own, but it's the playing, the combination, and the spaces that have been left for it that are really nice on the music for sure.
The lyrics of the songs tell many stories. They have a different stylistic sound to it. So for you to understand the lyrics, I will have to add the lyrics and the translated lyrics on my social media. Once the album is out, we're gonna be able to have that, sorted out. So we're gonna have that, you understand. If you don't understand the language, in the meantime, you can enjoy the language of the music. because the music has a different language. It has a spirit that drives the message. So it's amazing. So that is what I can tell you about the meaning of the lyrics. They're so different, and it feels like it has been written in different times, but these lyrics were written last year. Some of them long time ago, of course, but most of the songs I wrote them last year, and I collaborated with amazing musicians to make it really sound beautiful. Well,
I mean, ultimately, getting music out of the studio is a real process, and as we're coming out of COVID, hopefully, I'd like to think that those doors are going to be even bigger in the next while, and people are going to want to see what music gets done, you know, during these times. And I feel from your story that it's not a COVID-specific story, but it is music that's been made under different times. And in that sense, you know, I'm not sure, I don't think there's a website for that yet. But I would just add to that it really does have an aura to it. And as far as I know, there's a big community here already of let's say, I don't even know how to describe it other than that people would be interested in continental African music for sure, right? So I think inside of that, it will definitely find its way. And then beyond that, I think it's a question of appealing to stations that want to promote something with this kind of story behind it and with the sound behind it. So in that sense, I think it's a universal story. It's not just a story about making music in Rwanda. You know, it's a story about making music in a cultural place and being able, you know, it's music. It's universal in that sense. You know, the scales are very common scales in general, even though there are some accidental notes that feel kind of different through this instrument. It's still a very common feel of music that anybody can enjoy, and anybody who would be interested in the story behind it would be particularly, you know, even beyond the rhythms and the colors of it that are really beautiful. Like, that's what I get from it right away. So. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a completely new experience for me. You know, I picked out sort of what it was from listening, but then I needed to go and research it because it was such a striking sound actually, and there was actually one point on one of the songs where I was trying to sort of trade off with it a little bit and kind of play a little bit in that language because it was very distinctive. So it was a cool opportunity for me to work on something in a style and in a tradition that I'm not familiar with from before. So it was kind of special in that way.
Well, I think from what we talked about, the uniqueness of the instrumentation, and also the larger story behind it, if we want, I think that's incredibly unique in that sense. The sound of it comes across the more I hear it. Like, you know, at first I feel it's sort of a genre that is, you know, it's not really jazz. It's more like I think you can say, I think it's ethnic jazz. I'm not sure how I would describe it as a musicologist, but I would say that that's probably what it is. And then, like I say, beyond that, it becomes more geographic to me in the sense that it's about an area and about a story of somebody going back and making music from musicians in that area. I think I keep getting back to this a bit. So beyond the music, I think the story of the making of the music is very important. And I would like to think that at one point, you know, that you can hear that in the music. And in that sense, it's very Rwandan, I would think, right? And I think ultimately, that's going to be what makes it most unique. And of course, I don't think we have to talk about it in any way but an equal with other musics that have, you know, more specific genre feels or however you want to describe it.
I think it has a lot of versatility, and I think that it's like any plucked instrument, it kind of has a certain sort of affect to it, and you know, a way of speaking. I think the instrument kind of is very spoken, and so when I hear it being played, I kind of hear these phrases, these words, and so I think in that way it can be introduced into different places, and you hear that also in the songs. Like, at least from the songs that I played on, I feel that there's a lot of diversity between all three of them. They all have a very different mood and kind of different stylistic approach. So I would say, yeah, there's that sort of possibility of it being integrated into different places. Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't actually sure of the number of strings that it had, but that makes a lot of sense now. So basically, what's being used in the record is like an extended range from the original version. That's really cool. Yeah, I like that. I mean, for me as a string player, I find that interesting because those are the types of things that I find exciting is, you know, expanding the range of an instrument. Like, for example, you see actually in the past that people used 5-string cellos, or, you know, they use a viola da gamba with 7 strings instead of 6, you know, and it just kind of adds this extra vocabulary that wasn't there before. I think every musical art form is like you take from the past, but you bring it into the future, and I think you have these conversations with other musicians, and that, you know, helps you to expand your language, and I think that's just part of all music and how music has evolved in general.
Inanga igira injyana nyinshi nk'uko umuziki ari urusobe rw'injyana zitandukanye n'amajwi. Inanga rero ishobora kwisanga mu njyana izo arizo zose ushobora gutekereza. Ntabwo nakubwira ngo ni zuke ni reggae se gusa. Mu kinyarwanda cyacu tugira ikinimba, tukagira imishayayo. Ibyo byose inanga ibyisangamo, byaba ari ibya gakondo mu Rwanda, byaba ari n'iby'amahanga dushobora kumva. Iyo uhuye n'umuhanga uzi kwicuranga birajyana, kandi urumva ni umuziki, kandi nawo ufite ukuntu wihariye, ufite ubuhanga bwawo. Iyo uhuye n'umuhanga wawo, izo njyana zose zisangamo, kuko inanga ni igikoresho buriya gikiza cyane ku buryo abantu benshi batarabimenya, ariko muri izo njyana zindi birashoboka, ndetse ishobora no kugira umwihariko. Ubundi umwanya ni uwacu, nitwe dukeneye ku expose inanga ikagaragara. Haba hari n'iterambere rikenewe, inanga hari irindi terambere bikeneye kugeraho, ku buryo uyu munsi twicara turi gukora ku iterambere ry'inanga, twebwe nk'abacuranzi bayo, ngewe nkubwira ibi ngibi, hari iterambere ndi kugerageza gukora kugira ngo igerageze isingire ibyidafite, kuko hari ibyidafite, nubwo hari ubuhanga yihariye, ariko hari ibyidafite ikeneye kongera kuba upgraded. Uyu munsi rero tukaba ari cyo turi gukora kugira ngo n'inanga bwa buhanga bwayo burushaho kongera uburyohe, inagaragare mu ruhando mpuzamahanga, kuko kera ntibyari gupfa kwemera uko kuyihuza n'ibindi bicurangisho, kuba wajya nko muri stade ukayikina itaramplifiye nka gutyo. Ibyo twabigezeho, turakataje no mu rindi terambere ryayo, ariko birakonda kandi birashoboka. Abantu bakeneye kubona iyo fusion y'ibikoresho bya gakondo by'umwihariko no kuzamura izina ry'u Rwanda mu ruhando mpuzamahanga ku muco wabo. Rero birashoboka, biraryoshye, bizakubura.
Muri iyo myaka yose maze ncuranga inanga, hari ibintu byinshi nungutse. Ushobora kuzana indirimbo, buriya inanga yacu ifite amanota, nubwo twebwe tutarayavumbura ngo tumenye ngo nayaye, ariko ushobora kumva umuntu, ushobora gucuranga indirimbo hariya nkayumva mu matwi, nkahita ajya ku nanga nkayishaka. Biroroshye rero kuba nakusanisha n'abantu bari gucuranga ibindi bintu byose, yaba gitari, yaba piano, n'izindi instrument zose zishoboka. Nshobora kukumva nkagushaka mu nanga ngiye tukajyana. Ni ibintu byoroshye cyane. Ikintu cya mbere ni uko ubizi ndetse no kubikunda. Numva aricyo cya mbere giye kuri iki. Navutse mvukira ku nanga. Nakuze data ari wo murimo we wa buri munsi, ariko kazi ke. Nta kuntu rero ntari kuyikunda. Nibwo buzima nakuriyemo, mbona inanga, ngira n'amahirwe ndabikunda, nkora mbikunda, ambi iruhande, anyigisha umunsi ku wundi. Niyo mpamvu rero ubu nanjye nyikiri gitaka kahava. Na amahirwe makeya nyine tugira, rimwe na rimwe hari igihe tubura ubushobozi, ariko ndizera neza ko uko byagenda kose ubushobozi bwose nabona, nta nubwo nshobora kujya ku ruhande, nshobora gusora ibihangano byanjye, ariko ku mwanya wa mbere. Urumva niba umusaza ageze mu myaka 72, ejo cyangwa ejo bundi yaducika. Utekereza ibintu byose yaba ajyanye, umuntu atamubyajemo umusaruro. Ayo mahirwe aramutse abonetse rwose, nta kindi kintu cya mbere nakora no kumwegera, tukaganira, tukagira ibintu dushyira ku murongo, tukabikora bikajya ahagaragara.
Nkeka ko dukeneye ahubwo abantu bafite ya esprit cyangwa spirit yo kubikora, bagahura hamwe bakajyana. Bizamara igihe, bizatwara igihe nako, ariko guhozaho ni byiza. Mfite projet nanjye nagiye ndirimba mu festival atandukanye, ngenda njya ahantu hatandukanye mu bihugu bitandukanye, nanone nkagenda ngasanga twebwe ntabwo dufite ibintu twowninga. Usanga sounds zo mu Rwanda, indirimbo za Rujindiri za Ntamaganya Medal ziri mu Bubiligi, ndazifata nkazisamplinga nazishyira ku YouTube bakamubwira ngo you don't have right to use this, you don't have the copyright, kandi we ndi umwuzukuru wiwe. Rero nanone wajya kuri YouTube ukandika ngo amayigi, bahita baguha video zo mu bukwe with the bad sounds. Iyo umwana abyumvise rero ni kubivuga ko byabaye recordings na mu bukwe na video mu bukwe ntabwo bisa neza. So the project since 2019 nagiye nkora tour ngenda ahantu hatandukanye mu byaro, mfata ama sounds y'abakecuru y'abantu bakuze nyaza nyabika, nshaka gukora museum iri audio nuko ninga ibintu imbere na mbere nifuza.
I would say my audience, based on my personal observation, I would say my audience is very diverse. When I go on Instagram or my Facebook page or my YouTube, I see comments, and most of the feedback I get come from different people from different walks of life. Some of them are musicians from the USA, Brazil, others are Rwandans in Rwanda, others in diaspora. So music, you know, as long as you're making good music, you're gonna get more. The fan base will increase or we grow. So I'm hoping that my fan base will increase, and then I will have a more beautiful relationship with the audience, so they can listen to music wherever they are, whether I'm having coffee in a coffee shop, sitting in a living room listening to music. I hope that they will be inviting me in that intimate relationship of their everyday lives. I've always thought about it too. I've always wondered why our young audience in Rwanda or in diaspora are not open to listening to different genres of music, not only pop music or Afrobeat. Yes, we have exceptional situations where young people can enjoy listening to the type of music that I'm making or other folk musicians are making. But in general, it's a problem. Like, it's really problematic because we need to really preserve that sound. For instance, Inanga. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this project, because I started realizing or noticing that young people don't know Inanga. When you ask a young people, even in Canada, many people don't know Inanga, or even Dave, they didn't know Inanga. Why? Because we, the artists, or the musicians, or the music industry in general, do not really put too much value to this, to the traditional music, the sound of our ancestors, traditions, to our culture. This is a part of a culture because they used to play this to tell stories or to perform anytime in life. But today we hear more of, digital or like, that kind of music that you're describing. But I think there's a need to work together, like all of us. I'm doing my part, but we need to come together and do something about it so that our young generation do not forget about it, because we have to pass it on to the next generation so that we do not lose it. We need to preserve this by doing something more than just making music. They have to start maybe, for instance, that in my opinion, to start maybe a funding program to help or support emerging artists who like traditional music.
I need your love, just your love, lines for lining all the time.